and very excited this morning to have this opportunity to connect with everybody and really just to connect with and each of us on the topic of personal development, which is something we've been doing here within the Dream Makers Network and hosting this mastermind call since 2012. So I don't even know. I was my brain. I guess I hadn't had my second cup. It'd be 9 years in 2000 in Labor Day of 2012. We started really having calls on Saturday mornings. Actually, even before that, we were just, myself, Paz Morris, and Dwayne Mitchell were just, kind of at that new stage of life where we were having an opportunity to start families and, trying to progress in our careers. But it was one of those cases where you knew you were trying to do the right thing, but everything was new. Everything that we were doing was brand new territory, and trying to, in many ways, identify guidance in how to navigate these uncharted waters. And it's interesting when you're young men, and at that time I was in my early 30s, maybe 30, and really just, you have these examples in your mind of this is how you're supposed to do it. I saw somebody, whether it be your parent or grandparent, somebody in the community that you admired, and you just kind of pick up these examples of this is how you're supposed to do it. That early on, we find those people who we believe is doing it the right way. And so for me, that's all I had was that, those examples. But then you think about, not everybody has the same examples, and that's just the truth. There's some people who have completely different examples of what it takes to be a man, to be a father, to be a parent. And those examples, some people got their examples. I know a lot of folks who the examples that they saw was, Bill Cosby and Heathcliff Huxtable, and so it's just amazing when you reach a certain point in life, and now it's time for you to do it. And so we got started, and we were just connecting, and it was very helpful for us to be able to share and be honest. And then at the same time, begin the process of personal development. How do we grow and get better? How do we grow relative to our goals? What it is that we've identified we want to accomplish, whether it be in business, in the community, as a parent, as a husband, a spouse, and beginning to understand the process of goal setting and the importance of it. And one thing that was just kind of the big eye opener to me is that even at that age, you think you hear the word goal setting and you say, yeah, I know how to set goals. I know how to approach that. But then you realize when you start looking for those examples in your mind, like, when did I do it? Was I successful at it? And will those things that I've learned in the past help me in this stage of my life? And so it's just the power and the value of being able to connect with other like-minded people who are attempting the same things, regardless of what specific thing they're trying to accomplish, but the fact that they're in the spirit of, I want to get better at this. I want to get better at life. I want to get better in this business. I want to get better, in the community, and working together on the process. And so that's really what sparked and created life into this network, was being able to have a collective of people who are going through the process consciously together, the process of getting better, the process of wanting to develop into all the things that God has put into your mind, has put into your heart, all those things that you have, sat on for years, for whatever reason, all those things that are still 5 years later, you had a conversation with somebody. 5 years later, you're still having that same conversation. No growth, but it's still weighing. It's still of interest to you. This is really the purpose and the core of why we created this network, why we created this particular call, to consciously and intentionally unpack what it is that you truly want to see realized and happen in this life, and not be an example of someone who had great ideas, but never took this next step to actually accomplish those things. And so just excited to have you guys on the line this morning. And for those of you who are connecting with us via social media, so thankful to have you. This is an opportunity for us to, I hope as we're talking through this, that we are really being, looking inward, really taking a second to look inside yourself, to have that interpersonal conversation and say, you know what, you're right. I have been sitting on this. And it doesn't matter how young you are, it doesn't matter how old you are. We all, if we still have that energy that says, boy, I would like to do this, this, and this, and here's why. If that still is something that lingers in your heart, lingers in your mind, this is the call for you. Because that's exactly what we're here to do. And we spend these Saturday mornings really on that, to interrupt everything that's going on, that has been going on in your life, and just really connect with you, to connect with you and where you are and what's next for you. And so thank you so much for waking up, dialing in. We've been, this year, we've kind of moved to a monthly format for this call. We used to do it every other week. And so, but even with that, we want to just, I can say thank you for waking up at 7 o'clock and just for this topic. And I'll tell you what it does is, when you are able to wake up in the morning, 7 o'clock on the one day that you probably have to rest a little bit, it creates the energy for the call. It creates the right type of, space that we need to really resolve issues and get to the root of everything. And if nobody called in, I just have this little moment to myself to be able to inwardly reflect and do the reading, and sometimes just talk out loud. And then, my wife and daughter walk downstairs and realize I'm down here talking to myself, but that's fine. That's what they got. So that's just how it is. So I appreciate you. Thank you so much again, and look forward to hearing from you and connecting on today's call. Wanted to take a second and talk a little bit, as from a recap perspective, of our last call, where we really talked about the work of faith. The work of faith. It's like, that word faith is thrown around so much. It's almost like love. Those words that you can just throw around and think everybody knows exactly what you're talking about, and they also know what you're giving to them when you use those words. But we want to be able to really unpack what it means when we start talking about the work associated with faith. And on the last call, we were kind of outlining the story of Noah, and just really capturing that time period that he was in, and that's 100-year timeline where everybody's looking at him like he is absolutely nuts, but he's associating himself with his belief system and connecting that belief with trust and doing the work. And when everybody else is looking at him like, there's a thing called practical and there's a thing called delusional. And you, sir, are delusional. And he said, well, if you don't have faith, then yeah, you're right. If you don't have faith, then I am delusional. Everything that I'm saying, everything that I'm doing is completely delusional. But if you have faith and you're able to start the work on something that may not be tangibly here today for other people to see and understand, but you see it as clear as day in your mind's eye, in your spirit. You can see it, you can touch it, you can talk about it as if it's standing right here. It's a lot like, I always, I'm always, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm always just so impressed when talking to people who are like civil engineers or even just developers, when they can just go to an open land, but not even open land. Developers who can look at something that is currently happening right now. You can go to any major city, see all of these buildings and that's literally standing there right now. And then they come up with this whole new imagery of what's to come. Here's what we're getting ready to do in this area. Like, what are you talking about? This is here right now. It's like, no, but here's what we're developing. And check this out. We're going to add some sand, so that's not going to be there anymore. We're going to have a new, and I'm like, what? And it always blows my mind to talk to developers and people who can just create and help you see something that does not currently exist. And so I think it's worth talking about that in a way that helps us to recognize that we all have that capacity to really become connected with something definitely of importance to you that may not exist right now. And it may not tangibly be here. But that everything about your goals, everything that is connected to what you believe is important for you to create, and you associate that desire, that energy, that excitement, that importance with the thing that's not here yet to create it. And I think that, and it's the sooner we're able to just really do that and not allow all of the the practical police the people, the things, the society, whatever it is that's saying you're not supposed to think like that. Stop thinking like that. Think about the here and the now, and so whatever it takes for you to break through that wall that would allow your mind to see out further than everybody around you. That's just what you have to do. And I'm not saying it's easy, but I can say that, when we connect with what's important to us and we start really getting into our goals, we get into the things that really matter to you, and you start looking at these reasons why these things, you say, man, I can't do it because that's usually what happens, especially when you have the conversation is, well, wow, you just blew me away with this story about what you'd like to see happen. Why aren't you doing that right now? Here we go. Here comes the line of reasons why it's not happening. And I don't even want to call them excuses, because, we have to be careful when we're having these conversations with people. There's certain words that are already given titles and there's, associations that come with those words. So when you use the word excuse to somebody that you're trying to get a breakthrough, that word excuse, can easily bring them down to say, you know what, I'm wasting my time with this conversation, and they'll just retreat. So we want to find ways to be able to get to the core and keep moving forward to possibly have somebody make a life-changing decision that could send them on a whole new trajectory. And either that's with somebody who you are connected with, a loved one, a friend, a business partner, or it's you, or it's you. And I daily check myself on the things um, that I see as barriers to my progress. And I just go to God on it. I said, you know what, you gave me this idea, so you put this in my spirit, you put this in my mind, you get me all excited about it ever since it entered. I need you to handle that barrier. I need you to handle that because I don't know how to address it. And I got to a point where that's just the way life has to be. I don't have time to be trying to deal with stuff that's not even in my capacity to figure out how to overcome that. Some things are for me to address, and I've been given, the skills and the abilities to address it. And there's some things I don't have that. So I'm like, hey, that's for you. And I just recommend having that type of confidence and relationship to do that. I work with a lot of business partners, and when these guys and ladies have gone into business together, in many ways they've gone into business, everybody bringing their own skill set. And some people aren't familiar with, if these are developers and they may have 3 partners and one of the partners, has never built anything, but that partner maybe want the resources, has the money, or has the professional service knowledge around how to make this business work in compliance and how to make this business work efficiently and effectively. Others may be the more practical person who understands the engineering around building. But the truth is, when you realize you're out of your lane, you let that other partner go to work. So, all right, this is what you're here for, brother. Go get in and work your magic, because I have no clue how to move this forward. And so I just wanted to just take a second and talk a little bit about, the work of faith, and as we recap from last call, it is so vitally important part of the goal setting process. And for this call, we really try to stay as connected as possible with staying on message relative to the things that you want to see happen in your life. And especially when you find yourself in a roadblock and where something is just, you're hitting a wall, not figuring how to get over something. But I tell you this, it's so important to, as we're going through the process of goal setting, overcoming issues, overcoming challenges, that when you hit the wall, you can't say, I don't know how to do this to get over that. I don't know how to do it. I've never been able. Of course, that we know that. That's exactly why you've hit the wall, because you yourself don't have the capacity. You've never had the experience, or maybe you have tried something like this before and you've reached that point. Every time you reach that point, you've hit the wall because you're trying to do it by yourself. This is when you bring in, those partners, those people, that spiritual relationship, that people want to just kind of comb over and think it's not something that you need to have as a daily part of your life. You got to figure out what that is and what helps you to, to spiritually become much more confident and strong and in that space. Because without that, then now you're trying to handle everything that you approach with logic. And I can tell you, logic is, it's a great tool and resource to have. But it is not the one thing. It is not the silver bullet to get you through everything. You don't want to be illogical. So that's something that you definitely want to be able to learn and understand what it takes to become much more proficient, and keep your mind clear so you can be able to grow and develop. But That is not the silver bullet. You have to be able to tap into that relationship and really strengthen your belief system. So when you hit those walls and those roadblocks, you can say, this one ain't for me. I need you to handle that one and get in and be able to keep the ball moving forward and figure out ways to jump over it, skip, go straight through it, or whatever it takes. Because the biggest concern that I have with people who are ambitious, who are excited about growth and development and want to see things happen, want to see their goals come to life, is if it doesn't happen, what does that do to you as a person? What does that do to your mindset? What does that do to your spirit when you want something so bad, but you have tried to do it one way and it just has not made no progress made? What's happening to you in that process? And the last thing I want to see is somebody who was fired up, has always been just so connected with their goals, but not able to make progress because they're trying to do it by themselves. I had a conversation yesterday. It was a great example of that. And it was just very powerful to see that person begin to, the word I'm going to use is begin to delegate. And I think delegate is a good word to use, but the truth is begin to release, to release control of things that they shouldn't have ever tried to control in the first place. That this is just something that's not lined up with your energy, with your knowledge, with your interest to even begin to learn more about it, to be proficient in it. And this is when you delegate and release control and say, can you help me with this? I've seen what you've done with in your own life. I've watched someone else told me you've kicked the tires on those people. Can you help me with this? And you pray about it, to make sure that you are attracting the right type of people to you. But it's just, man, when that weight is lifted and you realize you don't have to think about it anymore because you've connected with the right people to move those balls forward. Now you've got this extra capacity to really dive into the things that truly matter to you and what you see and its ability to come to life. And so I just think that is just so important. The work of faith is, one, keep the faith, don't give up on the dream, but know that the work requires you to have a strong spiritual relationship, or at least, and I want to say the word, to be actively daily working on strengthening your spiritual life, which would give you the confidence and the discernment to be able to know what to do and what not to do. When to relinquish control and when to dive in head first and say, I got it. These things are just so important as we're doing the work of faith, and especially when these goals that you have are so real to you. Now, I get nervous when you meet people who don't have goals. Yeah, I do. It doesn't matter what type of goal it is. It don't have to be some big audacious goal, something that's just going to change the world type goal. That's not what goals don't have to be. It doesn't matter. It's just, it's all about what keeps you fired up. What are the things in your mind that you just, man, I got to get this done. It doesn't matter how, if everybody across the world is going to know, if you accomplish this goal, that everybody in the world is going to know it. This could be just very practical and simplistic, even with your own home or within your own family. But imagine what happens when you check that box and say, boy, I'm glad I didn't give up on that. And I'm glad I didn't give up on that goal, because look what happened to my family. Look what happened to my spouse. Look what happened to my brother, just because I didn't give up. And so I think that the core of this is to stay so in love with your goals, so committed to them, that you're willing to do the work of faith. Because if you're not committed to them, then at that point, what's the reason to bring faith into this and doing the work that's taking you off of your normal course of action, the comfortable state? And so I wanted to have that conversation with you just as a recap, and just really kind of unpack it. And for those who weren't on the call, to kind of give you a little bit of a taste of what we did talk about on the last call. The other thing, before we open up the call, we had also been talking about our personal advisors and those people, dead or alive, that you connect with, in many ways, they are kind of your mentors, that are people who've done what it is that you're trying to do, in different capacities. I've set a goal of having seven personal advisors that I can go to, that I can connect with, regardless if they're here with me right now, and I can go to their house and talk to them, or if they have been gone long before I was even born, but there's some written books about them and I can dive into the information that's available. I highly recommend that. This is something we all do. And I will say, it's just, for me personally, it's just a constant reminder, of being able to, when you just visually look at them. I've gone so far as to create a little wall in my house with those pictures of those people on the wall. So when I see them, my brain automatically goes to, that aspiration. It doesn't matter what type of mood I'm in at the moment. If I had a bad day and just things went crazy and all that, and then I walk past that wall, and my brain could quickly just readjust to keep moving, keep moving forward. Don't get in a funk. Don't get in a rut. And you see those people staring at you. It is just one of those little tricks you have to do in your house, just to keep you lined up, And so I've been working on getting to my 7. And right now I have 5 people on my wall, and I'm pretty confident that I'm at my 7 now. I got 2 people who I just found their pictures, and I'm going to send it, and get an 8x10 and get the frame and all that and put them on the wall. And then I've been looking at, I got a lot of wall space in this basement, and just been looking at, I'm like, I need to get some stuff to go on these other walls, and just really starting to create this little, this network, especially during COVID. It's not like I'm out going to people's houses and stuff. So I just, you got to bring who you need in. So, and have those conversations. The 2 people I did add this week, or I shouldn't say this week, but over the past month, I think I mentioned to you on the last call that in early March, Vernon Jordan passed away. And Vernon Jordan, if you don't know who that is, Vernon Jordan was, at one point in time of his life, he was the president of the Urban League and UNCF. But literally, that was the early part of his life. He was civil rights pioneer, not just in from a legal perspective, but definitely also from a corporate development perspective. He was kind of like, for lack of a better example, the Rosa Parks of the corporate world. To begin, everybody, it got to a point where they were like, hey, we got to get Vernon Jordan on our board because new laws are being passed. And when affirmative action came out, they didn't even have, a lot of these corporations didn't have, Black board members to refer to even fully understand how to implement affirmative action. He was the guy. And it got to a point where he was, at one particular time in his life, he was on 20 corporate Fortune 500 boards and was an advisor to, a host of others, because he didn't have the time to serve on their board. And it was a problem in and of itself, where he knew that this is not just about me. We have to begin a pipeline of bringing in there's a whole talent pool of Black people who can serve on these boards, but because we're just at the beginning of it, it's starting a whole new renaissance, that he was the go-to person during that time. If for some people this could be a good thing, for others this could be a bad thing, but if it wasn't for Vernon Jordan, there would be no Bill Clinton as president. It would not have happened. Vernon Jordan is the core reason why we had him as our president during the 1990s. And so just a pioneer, and when we think, and for me, and I would say, when we start thinking about these advisors that you're attracting to your life and people you look to for mentorship, for me personally, I start thinking about my goals and the things that I want to accomplish in this life. And they're so diverse. So you have different people. You have people who, probably in some cases, would have been at odds with each other, but because of your goals and the things you're hoping to accomplish and that are important to you, they may be a part of your advisory team. And so it's not that those people are kind of in alignment with each other or would be in alignment. You just have to know what it is that you want to create. The other person that I recently added, I don't know why they weren't on, this person who wasn't on earlier, but Bishop G.E. Patterson, for me, was, man who passed away in 2007. But during my young years, as a even preteen, I literally every Sunday morning at 7:00 in the morning, I was turning on BET just to hear this man, because I always looked at him as like the most humble, powerful man that I've ever seen. It's like, when I never forget the one and only time actually that I had a chance to be in the same room with him was, I believe it was in 1998, and it was in Orlando, and he was getting ready to speak, and his plane was late, and so the service was already going on, and I just remember, and everybody was there for him, right? But I just remember when he walked in the room, you guys probably, if you're from the Black church, you can remember, sometimes people, when they walk in late and they're trying not to interrupt the service, they'll put their head down and put up one finger and to say, I'm only going to be a minute. Please don't, please don't, I don't want to stop what's happening right now. My apologies. He did that. I'd never seen a bishop, somebody or anybody of importance walk in and give that. It was probably, I tell you, I'll never forget that. And just to walk, but the interesting part was, if you didn't know who he was, you saw this kind of meek person. But then when he opened his mouth, it was like, good Lord. It could be any word. It was just, but he listened to the tone and tenor of his voice. Whatever came out was meant to reach you. It was, when it came out of his mouth, it was this, I'm saying something because I need this to resonate with what's going on with you, with wherever you are. It was just a, and I still listen to his tapes and stuff, and just to reconnect with, just with the man and how he would, his style and approach. And so it's just those little things, when you're looking at putting together your wall of advisors. And so I'm going to stop there. I've kind of went on with that about 45 minutes. But let's open up the call. Anybody have any questions or comments? If you've been working on your wall, working on your team, who they are, and why, if I don't know, how many people have you kind of identified that you'd like to have as a mentor? Maybe you already have mentors, and you're currently a mentee to someone. How did that come about? I just want to hear some of these stories as to how you're approaching this, and even if you're at the beginning stages, but you're really trying to pull this together. Let's take a second. Let's open up the call now. Anybody have any questions or comments, or want to just talk a little bit about your process in this and what you've been working on over the past month? So we'll take a second to open up the call now.
Hello, Byron.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning. Hey, this is Teresa.
How are you doing?
Well, I'm doing well, sir. As far as, my mentors, I haven't really been in much contact. It's COVID, and my surgery has really been a disarray. But what I have been doing is a sort of having several mentees, several women, and we started it out as I called it more like a success group or accountability group, whereas I had them establish a goal, and the key, the meaning behind it is that you can be successful at anything that you desire, and how key accountability is, how crucial that is a step in what you're attempting to do. Whether it was for one going back to school or wanting to run a 5K run, I basically started out by showing them how to take a big goal and make it in smallest pieces. Like, how do you eat an elephant? To my delta, one bite at a time. So that was the key thing, because people see things as so overwhelming when they're going for something, and showing them how to break it down in smaller size pieces. And not only that, showing them how to celebrate the small successes as you're going along, and that was key. And that has been my approach.
Now, let me ask you this: how have you connected with these women? How has that relationship? How did it even come about that they were able to connect with you, or did you reach out to them? What's the impetus there?
Well, actually, I reached out to one. She was someone that I knew, and I knew she had some goals and some things, and it spread from there. I reached out to her, and she knew a couple of people, so a person told a person, told another person. It's how it happened.
Yeah. No, that is. How often do you guys connect?
Weekly. We
Okay.
connect weekly. And we, kept it down, to an hour, and I let them, necessarily pick the date. That was best for them. And we actually take notes. And so for the next week, I even paired each one of them up with each other, so that they can be an inspiration during the week. Like, two of them, you two walk together. So that therefore, in between the week, if you started, backsliding, you had somebody saying, hey, what are you doing? It's okay. Get back on track, so that you just did continually go a week without any communication.
Gotcha. Got it. Now let me ask you this. So now, what are you doing for you and for your, because like you say, when things can get crazy, and I would probably assume that you personally get a lot out of engaging and spending time with the women in your team. But what do you do to strengthen your spiritual, your mental, just, and help you with your own specific goals?
With me, I, as Napoleon Hill, I have to increase my mind. So what I have done is I've taken some more courses. I'm taking courses because I have the passion for the nonprofit. I'm actually taking some nonprofit courses where I'm learning more of the strategies and I'm learning more about nonprofits. I'm trying to put my money, where my mouth is. And that has been very interesting because one is something new to me. And a lot of us get into things and we don't feel we have to be educated about it. I'm finding the more that I know about this, the more effective that I'm going to be in it. And so that's what I'm doing.
I love it. This is good. This is really good. I appreciate you sharing that. That is exactly an example of what we're trying to outline here, and just to get a chance to see the work and the reasons for the work. So that is perfect. Thank you for sharing that, Doretha.
You're welcome.
Anybody else? Let's open up the call. Anybody else would like to take a second and just kind of outline over the past month what you've done? What are you doing? One, we talked about the work of faith. What does that look like for you? We've talked a little bit about the advisory, our personal advisory team, who those people are and why. How do you engage? Would love to just hear your story and what you're working on now, regardless successful or not. I think that the fact that, and what we want to do here for this call is just at least to be able to create, an environment and a safe space to be able to share, communicate that, and begin the process of really helping to connect where it is that you'd like to go. So let's take a second and we'll open up the call now. And even for our folks on social media, please feel free to connect and share in the comments as well what you're working on. We'd love to hear from you. I'm taking a look as well online, so don't hesitate to share online as well. So we'll open up the call now. Morning.
Oh, man. So, a mindset. All right. A lot of things. But I think the most, I'm glad, Rika reminded me that, I have been working as a mentor in a success program, a mentorship program. I got called into as as what we call a success coach, right?
Okay.
I've been, I got assigned a couple people, and I've been working with this young guy who, he has dreams and goals, and I think it's just because this is more of a business success class, meaning that they come in with a goal in business and they try to get somewhere. So it's very rudimentary in the sense that this is that at the end they lead with a set business plan, or a framework of a business plan, not a full-blown business plan, a framework of a business plan, and their ideas of this thought, and and it's geared towards young black men. I picked this. I'm looking at this guy. We're talking. He's reaching out. He's text messaging me, and I'm text messaging him back and trying to make sure I stay within the framework. But obviously, I'm a dream maker, so I'm trying not to sprinkle them with too much of the activity, with all the stuff, and overload him with all the stuff that we talk about. But that's been very rewarding
kind of being in an environment where there is somebody who is ignorant of a lot of the things, and ignorant in the sense, in the real word sense of the term of ignorance. Like, I really just don't know, but humble and interested, and so it has such a desire to learn and then implement it in the place that it's been deemed to be put.
Yeah.
So that's been rewarding. You get a chance to pour out the cup a little bit. You spend so much time filling it up, and when it overflows, it's almost like spilled milk.
Yeah.
So it's wasted, but it feels good when you can put it into a good fresh bowl of cereal. If I'm saying with the analogy, a nice dry bowl of cereal that just requires that milk. Goodness to pour it in, and then see it snap, crackle, and pop. Put the whole metal pudding and see it snap, crackle, and pop. But I've been interesting, and that's been fun and rewarding, and it's been the one thing that I've been taking from it selfishly is that even with people who have energy to do something, who just really have the energy to do something, especially a young person, that just has the energy, you can feed off their energy. So even if they don't have all of the information, the knowledge, and the stuff that we might have got from all the readings and life experience, but they've got that energy. I just want to learn. Well, and I'm ready to go. What else can I do? If anything else, but not much. I'm staying with the framework to work on that. But that energy is also infectious. So it helps me. Like, okay, that hunger. You see the hunger in somebody's eyes, or hear it in their voice, or hear text messages and the emails and the frequency and all that. So it's pretty good. That's been interesting and exciting. And that happens once a week.
Wow.
And, so yeah, that's been fun. The other thing that I've been working on this experiment, I think life has a full experiment anyway, right?
Yeah.
So I've been testing out our workout thing.
Yes.
Right, and making sure that I stay within the goals that I set for myself in order to just complete certain things, right, in the workout thing. But then trying to figure out and apply that mindset that it takes to do something that might be more physically strenuous, and then apply it to other things. A couple things. Well, the main thing that I came up with was something that is kind of, I think, underlined with a lot of the stuff that we do, is that building trust with yourself is one of the main things that helps with self-esteem. And we know that we need self-esteem or self-belief in order to get things done and to punch through those barriers, right? And I don't know where I got it from, but I heard it a while ago, that building trust with yourself, meaning that the first person that you say something to, like if you make a promise, your goal represents a promise that you put to yourself, right? And you need to make sure that you hit them or attempt to hit them or do what you say you're going to do when you tell yourself that you're going to do it. Not anybody else, because if you continue to lie to yourself, you don't trust yourself, and that's what destroys your self-esteem, if you will. If I articulate it as well as I heard it at first, but that was the way I took it. So what I did was I said that if I'm going to continue to build, self and build myself up, and always working on becoming my highest and best self, I need to, when I tell myself something, I need to believe it implicitly that it's going to occur. So I've been doing that because I want to build the trust with myself. So I felt like that was a very powerful thing. And the only way, there's plenty of ways to do it, but the way that I'm doing it now with the effort that's being put in with working out is that I told myself that I was going to do this, and I cannot lie to me. And in not lying to myself, it makes you feel not only physically better, but there's a mental pump that you kind of go over.
Yeah.
That has been very, 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 very powerful in doing it at the end. Now, the physical pain and stuff like that is definitely not pleasant. I'm trying. Because I want to say that there's times where I've been working out, and it's not like I'm working out super hard. So, it's just one some stuff and a run, some stuff and a run, some stuff and a run. And I said I was going to do it 5 days a week, and that's what I've been doing. I'll see this month. But as I get deeper into the month, I'm just like, wow, I should be healing at this point. Like, this part still shouldn't hurt.
Yeah.
But it does. And I'm like, wow, okay. You're a little older than you think. This isn't when you were,
Yeah, that's right.
You're not. Like, you just don't recover like you used to be able to.
That's right.
So, then you go to your supplement game, and it's a whole thing where you're trying to beat recovery. But the bottom line is, I'm not going to lie to myself.
Yeah.
And being in that space, has given some clarity to goals, to other goals, and to desires that I laid out for myself. That I'm like, wow, okay, that's a lie. You're lying to yourself there. Or if you're gonna say this to yourself again, then you need to accomplish it. You need to be there.
Yeah.
Because you want to continue to build that trust with yourself, which is the most important trust. And it seems like it's, for me personally, a fuel to make sure it happens, and a deficiency that I probably had before, because I can see the holes in it. It's making me reflect. On past attempts and failures.
Interesting.
And successes, things that I said I was going to do, and I did, and it did happen, and how good that. And the reason why it wasn't necessarily the accomplishment itself, even if it might have been, a large sum of money or, some kind of accolade. It was the fact that I said something and I fulfilled it, and it was because I was building up, trust with myself to build that self-esteem piece, and that internal piece. Yeah, so I've been utilizing that. So that's been very interesting. That's just been this month. So obviously you got a long life to live. 30 days is 30 days, but
yeah.
But that's been kind of a revelation, if you will, and something that I'm applying, and I will definitely make an adjustment to this workout thing, and taking supplements and whatever else to get myself back to
yeah.
to stop limping around all day. But it is what it is. So that's been that. There's plenty of other things, but I think those 3 things were pretty good.
I tell you, man. One thing that you said that really made me go back to something we talked about a long time ago on this call is when we really start to unpack what self-esteem is, and personal self-development. And I'm glad that you talked about the trust, being able to at least trust yourself. You know what I'm saying? Because it's like, if you don't trust yourself, how can you expect other people to trust you? Especially, and for some people, that's a bigger factor than others, where you really need to have other people trust you. And it's just amazing what we have to do and what is necessary to begin that inward trust, that self-development, where you're not looking for validation outside. And a lot of times that's where people are looking for validation from other people to feel good about moving forward. In so many aspects of our life. But if we can begin to be self-validated and I look at that a lot of times, and me personally, just from a personal spiritual, where my spiritual life is at this point in my life, I look at it as the first thing I do is just say, God, are you pleased with what I'm thinking? I hadn't even done it yet. Like I hadn't even started to do it. But, and which still for me is still more of an inward situation. I'm not looking at what my neighbors are thinking, what my business partners are thinking, what my competition is thinking, even what my spouse is thinking at that point. It's really about, me and God and just trying to, and about my thoughts, because whatever you're thinking about is where you're going. So I mean that we know that especially if you're thinking about it a lot, whatever that is you're thinking about, you're headed there. You are going there. And so it's so important to make sure that what we spend our time thinking about, that nobody else knows, is lined up with where you truly say to yourself and to the world that you want to go. And so that self-development aspect of it, of being able to trust who you are. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because I can tell you when I think back, just throughout life, I will say that there's definitely times in my life where I didn't even trust what I was selling. You know what I'm saying? Like, how you telling, you're putting a certain image out, and you're talking to people about something. But then when, all that's done and you start looking inside yourself, I can't do this. It's like you oversold something that you're not willing to really develop and see happen. And unfortunately, we see a lot of people like that. It's like every time you see them, it's like it's a new something. Like, well, what happened to that thing you sold me on the other last time we talked? Like, oh man, no, that didn't work. I'm like, well, whoa, like I'm supposed to get excited about this. But you're so right. Just to be able to trust who you are, just to trust yourself in this whole, especially as we're talking about goals, trust yourself to even be willing to do the work, like we talk about the work of faith, to make it real. So I tell you something else, man. You said something else that really, I guess, it gave me all the right feels. It's when you said, I am a dream maker. And I, and the truth is, I probably not until you said that one thing that I've ever thought about it in that way, even though this is the Dream Makers Network, a network of dream makers. So,
that was the revelation.
That was a revelation right there.
Hey, man.
That was the revelation. That was the revelation, that this is a network of, and I tell you something else though, and what's interesting is that and then when you said it, it made me think about what Doretha just said, like before you. And when she started talking about what she was working on, she was being a dream maker to a collective of women. And, so it's just, it's so powerful to hear about the work. Like my pastor talks about, literally, I can basically say his sermons. Because every Sunday he says, listen, I'm not looking for members, I'm looking for disciples. So, and they say, and God wants to see disciples. So what are you doing to be a disciple for Jesus Christ? That's his message. And it's a good message, because it's a message that I don't get tired of hearing. Even though I know he's going to say it, I don't get tired of hearing that message. And so, and I think that's probably why I ask you guys, what have you been working on over the past month? Because just to hear the work, you know what I'm saying? that's powerful to be able to hear the work that one is like, I like to think about it one, and the way I kind of position it to you guys early on is how are you working on you? But then you guys have come back and said, well, here's how I've reached other people. And the truth is that that's a beautiful thing, because that at the end of the day is what we're really trying to accomplish. It's the fact that we know that, yes, we take this moment early in the morning on Saturdays to recharge, to share, to reconnect, to kind of clear our thoughts. But then when we hang up the call or we finish up on this thing, we get back into our work and we go back into, connecting with people who truly need all the goods that you got. So that was good. That was good, man. And it's always good to hear that. So I'm glad you shared that too. Anybody else would like to take a second and share and kind of talk about where you are? And we've kind of outlined a few things about the past month, what you've been working on, who you connect with, personal advisors. I appreciate this conversation. For me, it's very helpful. I'll tell you that much. So we'll take a second to open up the call now.
Brother D, how you doing? This is Gary Best. What's up, everybody?
My man, how you feeling, man?
What's up? Hey, man, I just want to go on record to thank Brother Pat, because I haven't been able to exercise well. I have been attempting to get back to it, but seeing his post every day with that 100R, man, it's like a lighthouse, right? I feel like I'm out in bad sea, and I see this post every day, and I'm like, all right, Gary, stay focused. Okay, you got to get some things in line, but keep your focus in this direction. So Pat, brother, thank you so much, man, for that post, man, and I'm glad that I'm a part of that group where we just hold each other accountable to work out and that kind of thing. But man, I had some plans, and I was in the process of achieving some things and implementing some things. But then life happened, and I had to kind of make some shift.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing I discovered about myself is that if I'm going straight, I'm cool. But then if there's a shift, it kind of throws off everything. So while I'm in the process of getting things back, to where I can, do some things like exercise and, focus on my businesses, things of that nature. I'm also thinking like, all right, Gary, this isn't going to be the last time in life that things are going to shift, and you're going to have to kind of get back your equilibrium. So while you're getting things back in line and balance, you need to come up with a plan also, so when this happens again, it's not going to take you as long to get back in balance. So that's kind of what I've been going through this past month.
Yeah, man. And I tell you what, the best thing that you kind of highlighted is the fact that you're aware. When you had a plan, boom, something happened, but I'm aware that this has happened, and on top of that, here's the coaching process to get back on track, or to find a new way to get around it, or this is why the situation is, and one thing that I probably should share with folks, I know we've shared on the past couple calls, but at the beginning of this year, which is also something that's great, man. Like when we started the new year, we put a petition out, say, hey, we're going to get a workout team, and we're just going to keep each other accountable. And that team has grown now to, I guess, maybe about 7 people, I believe. Started out, I think it's maybe like 2 or 3 people. And so roughly about each month, we've added somebody new. And it's just, get a chance to, it's great to see the activity and what people are doing and how they're doing. And you can kind of measure what they're doing based on what you're doing. And even for myself, my goal at the beginning of the year was from a physical perspective, was to just get into the rhythm of getting up early in the morning and getting in 3 miles. I was like, I just want to be able to, I wasn't trying to say, oh man, I want to lose 35 pounds and all these different things. I just wanted to get into a space where that's a normal thing to do. And I figure if I can get into a space where that's a normal thing to do, then now I've increased kind of my base. Because if my base is just sleeping until it's time to go to work, then, it's like, that's the deal. But I wanted to increase my base where I can say, okay, my base is I get up and try to get 3 miles in. And then when I see you guys doing, these extra things, I'm like, okay, I think I want to do some of that, and how often, I don't know, but I think I want to try it. And that's the good part about having that group and see what other people are doing to say, okay, well, let me get in, but it's just more about trying to have a better lifestyle for me. But the fact that we're almost in May and we're still at it, a lot of these groups, these workout groups end, after about 28 days, and, before you can even get out of the month. And some folks are falling off, but this has been a very consistent group. And so I'm with you, brother. I'm excited about it as well, and always motivated when I see folks on it. Especially was it last week when my sinuses was killing me, and it was a wrap. I was like, I ain't getting up. But just to get back in the groove, man. So I appreciate y'all for just working hard and staying at it. So, all right, look at here. We're past 8 o'clock, 8:13. And we've kind of connected. This is a 2-hour call now. So it used to be an hour. It's a 2-hour call. I wanted to just take a second and kind of dive into the topic for today, and that I sent out to you guys as the topic of asset protection. Asset protection. Now, I know on the surface, you say, here we go. Financial dude wants to talk about asset protection. What we're about to learn about, life insurance and money and all that. Like, well, that's kind of one way to think about it. But I think that for the purposes of this call is that especially when we're talking about personal self-development, and really being able to take a look at your assets, that you bring to the table. What makes you different? Dare I say, what makes you special? A lot of people don't like to use those terms about themselves, and I know it comes from a good place. But the fact is that each and every one of us are unique beings. We're unique, so you can use the word unique. You can use the word special. There's a lot of different words that you can use that highlights the fact that you are an individual that's different from other people. And I think it's just so important for us to understand and know what makes us different, what makes you different from the next person, and how, and on top of that, what are those things that you would identify as an asset that you have? And so it's probably worth just talking about the word asset and what an asset is. It is something that appreciates in value. And so, it's amazing when we think about people, sometimes we say, man, that person is just so talented. I remember as a kid and we had like other kids who were involved in different things. And one day they're singing, the next day they're, an athlete. The next day they're, doing monologues and stuff. And say, yikes, that guy is just so talented. And at this stage of our life, maybe we're early on, when we were kids, we hadn't really figured out all the things that we had in our toolbox yet. But at this stage in life, even if you don't see it this way, somebody has recognized your value. If you've had a job, for X amount of years, you've been able to pay your bills and do different things. There's something that you are bringing to the table that is valuable to somebody else. If you have been married, and somebody, or you're in a relationship and somebody is constantly coming back to you and saying, yes, you are special to me. That's the reason why I don't want to be with anybody else. you are doing something that is valuable to somebody else. If you've had relationships, friendships that have lasted 20, 30, 40, 50 years, or more, and you still can pick up the phone and call those people or connect with them, and that person still finds value. And so I think it's important for us to at least take a second to understand, what is it about you, not that you think is valuable, that just is valuable. Like there is something, and there's proof. There's living proof today, whether you think it's valuable or not, because that's the issue for most people, is that, we were, and I always look at it as if you're raised right, you probably aren't going to say, oh yeah, I'm so good at this, and oh yeah, I'm so good at that. But there is proof that you are bringing value to something, to somebody, because of just where you are in life. And what are those things? What are those things that you do that is valuable to other people? And then I would just take a second to, once you've kind of identified what those things are, then even ask yourself why. Like, even before we go further in talking about the appreciation aspect of it, how did it get to this place? Like, how did you become valuable, talented? How did this skill, how was it honed? Was it intentional? Was it on purpose? Did you always have that? And just really begin to take a look at your assets. So if I'm having a conversation with my client or a prospective client to manage their money, and we start talking about, their balance sheet, their personal balance sheet, and we say, okay, well, let's talk about your assets, and then let's talk about your liabilities. And so on the asset side, what are those things? And what do you have? You got a house, you got, let's try to figure out all of those things that could appreciate in value. And let's talk about those things. How'd you get it? Why did you get it? What are your goals about those assets going forward? Let's look at these other things. Like, why'd you get that? It's not appreciating value. It's depreciating, but you seem to love it as if it's appreciating. But let's talk about that. And then so we get a chance to connect with that person and to see how they feel about what they've created, what they have, and what they view as assets that may not be an asset, or what they may not see as an asset that is just the hidden gem of everything. Like, yikes, I didn't know you had that over here. I had a conversation yesterday with a longtime client, and he calls me, oh man, did I tell you about the house that we got? No, you never told me about that. What is going on? No, I did not know about it. And let's figure some more out about this, to figure out how it plays into your long-term goals and objectives. And so I say the same thing, as we begin to take a look at the assets that we bring as a person, whether it be, a skill or talent that you have, from and why it is an asset. So when you think about, if somebody is a great singer, and there's a market for what they do for that talent, and it will be, and as long as they can do it, there'll be a market for that for the rest of their life. There's some people to this day, and we just think about some of the great entertainers, they just did it throughout their whole life. We're not going to stop talking about these people. Like, it's like they've already passed away, but that asset continues to appreciate in value, and it's benefiting, their families, people who, grandkids, great grandkids who they'll never meet. But because of that one ability, that talent, that skill, it is constantly increasing. And so I want us to really take some time to think about, one, what are your assets? And two, how do you protect them? And three, are you using your assets to help you accomplish the goals that you've identified that matter to you, that truly matter to you? How to use those assets, those things that you bring to the table, to take your goals to the next level, and just watch a continuum of appreciation and value to you and to the people who are, ultimately a benefit of the goal that you just accomplished or are working toward creating. And so I think it's important for us to kind of outline those two things, because when you start thinking about asset protection, so on the practical side, if you have a home, but what are the things that you have to do to protect your house? That asset. You need insurance. You need house and home owners insurance, depending on where you live. You need certain types of insurance other than others. Like if you live in Florida, you need hurricane insurance. If you live next to a lake, you need water damage insurance. If you live in a volcano area or earthquakes, so you need specialized insurance to protect that asset. If you have a business, you need the different types of insurances to protect the asset that you have. If you got a special person who works for you, who is really the main person who's keeping that business going and growing, you got to insure that person, because that person is a key employee. You got to do all types of special bells and whistles to keep that person around, because that person is an asset to the business. And I was thinking about this the other day, actually yesterday. So we have this where within our firm, people can just say, they'll go on a web lead, or they'll just go to our website and say, oh, you guys got those services? Schedule me an appointment. And whenever that happens, it comes to if they schedule an appointment, it goes right to my calendar. And so these are, you don't know what they want to talk about. So, and you literally have no clue what they want to talk about, because we are a tax advisory firm. Usually it has something to do with tax. But then as you start unpacking, there's a whole host of other things there, which creates opportunity for the firm. But I usually always have, say our senior tax advisor on the line, who may be able to unpack things, because I'm not a CPA, and to have them dive into it, but just to listen to what's going on. And we had a call yesterday, and that came in, didn't know what was going on. And it was so interesting because, it's, when somebody calls, and what you also have to be prepared for is the fact that they may be trying to dodge something else, especially when you start talking about taxes. So they may be in a whole mess of issues, but they're only going to give you one story. And so it was so interesting yesterday as we were having this conversation and just beginning to ask the right questions. And so I usually go through a process of trying to qualify the situation, so you got to really listen to effectively qualify what's going on. So qualify, begin to find out what their real true intent is, then prioritize those things, and then create an action step. And so in that process we uncovered that this was, somebody was trying to, not only it was already issues that they were dealing with, that if we brought them on as a client, we'd now be, kind of listed as the advisor to help them go through to fix something that really is something they should deal with long before they have come to us. But on top of that, to be able to uncover a motive that could even become criminal. And if you don't ask the right questions, you're going to find yourself, got a new client, rah, let's do it. But it's so important, especially when it's one thing if I'm the guy who's actually trying to bring in a certain type of client, and I just want to spend time with that type of a person or company. It's another when they're coming to you and you don't know what type of energy, what type of intent, what their motive is, what their goal is, that could be completely out of alignment with the objective of the business, could be the objective of how, or the type of people you want to associate with. And I say that to say It takes talent to be able to, it takes talent, it takes experience. And that's the reason why we start thinking about these assets, that some things that some people are born with and they just bring it to the table. Others, they've worked hard to develop a skill, to create a process, to do something that's really going to be valuable in a marketplace or for a person, but to really have figured out this is an area that I don't see a lot of people doing it this way, but if we do it this way, it could be beneficial to not only that market, but also to yourself personally. And so when we're thinking about these skills that we've created, these processes that have become valuable to other people, these and then what comes with that, then now you're the demand for what people wanting you and wanting your time and wanting more access to you. And how do you manage that? Because the one thing that I've recognized, especially when you're dealing with people, everybody has a motive, everybody has an agenda. You hope that their agenda and their motive line up with you, because that's the great part when that's the case, but that's not always the case. So what do you do when that's not the case? When you actually have people who are now in your space, who are now in your life, who are now in your business, who you figure out, yikes, this is not a good look, and I got to figure out a way to protect my asset. And so for me personally, one of the things that I do, to try to protect my asset is never get lost on what it is that I'm trying to accomplish. And then create this ideal kind of, utopian example of what I would love to see it look like. And so I had a conversation yesterday with someone else, just like, in a perfect world, how would this look? What would happen? In a perfect world, what would this look like? And if you can always try to pursue the perfect world, even though we know we live in a world full of flaws, but if you are always trying to pursue the perfect world example, then you'll know what doesn't belong. You'll know what shouldn't be there, because you've already created this big vision, this big idea. Even the scripture talks about write the vision and make it plain. Because if you can see this, this idealistic opportunity or this idealistic thing, the way you really want it to be, you'll know what should not be there. And so I want us to kind of think about the process and I'm going to share with you kind of what my belief system as it relates to how to get to that point. And one of my favorite books, and it is book time. It's 8:30, so it's book time to start kind of highlighting these books. But one of my favorite books that I go to a lot is The 7 Spiritual Laws of Success by Deepak Chopra. And the first chapter in the book is the Law of Pure Potentiality. Basically, the Law of Pure Potential. And I want to just kind of highlight why I go to that and why it's so important. Because when we think about the whole process of creating something that's not here yet, kind of the work of faith that we talked about last week, if you know that everything is pure potential, it's now just about you allowing the process to work and having the right mindset to let the law be law. If you allow yourself to just do that, it's going to happen. It's not as like it may happen, it possibly, it's going to happen. There's just like there's no stopping that. And so I want to read to you just kind of the beginning, just kind of the preface here of this chapter, the Law of Pure Potentiality. It said the law of pure potentiality is the source of all creation, is pure consciousness. Pure potentiality seeking expression from the unmanifest to the manifest. So the thing it's not real yet, but it's going to become real. And so I want to just kind of stop there, because what you are hoping to create, what you've identified in your mind to create, and you've already made the commitment to taking all the assets that you have, the resources that you have, and pouring them into making this goal come to life. That if you do that, if you make that decision, then you've already started the process of taking something that is nothing right now and making it something. And once you've just said, yes, that's the direction I'm going, then there's no need to allow, especially if you've already created that ideal example of what it is, there's no need to let something or things that should not belong and things that don't feel well, people who don't feel right, your question, you don't have a real reason, you can't really put your finger on exactly what it is, but that what they're doing doesn't feel right. What they're saying doesn't feel right. The direction I'm on doesn't feel right. It's because you've already created what the ideal example is, what it should be. You've created it in your mind, in your spirit. You've already mapped that out. And so when something doesn't feel right, it's because it's not lined up with your goal. It's not lined up with what you would like to see accomplished. Now, there are times, right, when you've identified a goal and you said, man, this is what I want to see happen. And then you learn more information that could help you add value to the goal, which further makes you feel more excited about it. But if you get new information about your goal and you don't get excited, maybe that's somebody else's goal that gets them excited, but how do you feel about it? Like, do you see this as something you're still fired up to accomplish? And so it is just this process that when we begin to protect the things that we currently have and the thing that's going to help us accomplish this goal, we go back to the fact of, I have to protect this by believing that if I just get into the rhythm and take, like we were talking about the other day, I love to see people walking because they're putting one foot in front of the other. And as long as you continue to put one foot in front of the other, you're going to go somewhere. And that's exactly what we're talking about as it relates to goal setting. And the assets that you have in walking is the fact that you have 2 feet and the ability to move forward. And so do you have the right assets to accomplish the goals? And if you do, how do you protect those assets? How do you keep them strengthened? How do you keep them strong? How do you keep the ball moving forward? I was just listening to Reginald Lewis the other day. It was the great business magnate here in Baltimore, passed away, I guess, almost 30 years now. But his motto, even on his gravestone, was keep going no matter what. Keep going no matter what. And that has to be etched in stone in our mind, when we start thinking about our goals, when we start thinking about the things that matter to us, even when we hit these roadblocks, even when we we went through we're still going through, but we went through the height of a pandemic, losing family members, losing loved ones, losing business partners, and still keep going no matter what. Keep going no matter what. And so I just wanted to share that with you, as we start really talking about the assets that we have, making sure we're protecting those assets, making sure that we're doing all the necessary things to invest in our goals, and that's allowing us to do the work. It's just I remember my man, Jim Rohn, who would always say, study, practice, and teach whatever it is that you believe in. Study, practice, and teach the things that you believe in. And so when you're doing that, that's asset protection, because you're reinvesting in those belief systems, those things that you bring to the table, those talents, but you're always moving forward toward the goal. So wanted to take a second, just open up the call. Anybody have any questions or comments about, this whole idea of highlighting your own assets, being able to recognize what they are and how to use them to help you accomplish the goal? Are you one of those people who that I don't know what I bring to the table? I don't know if I don't think I have any assets. Are you one of those people? And you need to be able to take a step back and say, and just to really doing a kind of a self-audit of what's going on in your life, to really say, listen, take a look at what you bring to the table, what you're giving, what you're pouring out. And people are paying you for it. So, but let's take a second. We'll open up the call now. Anybody have any questions, comments, or just, suggestions as it relates to this topic?
Hey, Byron.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning, brother. How's everything?
My brother, how you feeling, man?
And super blessed, bro. Hey, I wanted to ask you specifically, and anybody on the call. So I found myself literally thrust into a place that I hadn't seen or foreseen myself being until about a year from now. So all of a sudden, I'm ahead of all of my plans. And for as exciting as it is, it's creating a level of anxiety, which I find myself not able to sleep. I'm up early, ripping and running, not eating, not hydrating. So I wanted to specifically have some conversation with you, and I'm open to any advice or consultation from anybody in the group as to how to slow down and pace myself so that I don't burn out.
Hey, man, that's a real thing. That is a very real thing. And the first question I would ask, though, when you start looking at the things where you feel like you're ahead of the game, like you said, a year ahead, and from a goal perspective, is when you look at those things that you're doing, how many of those are all of them your specific goals? And if they are some of it, somebody else's goals, and you got involved and you're kind of leading some of those efforts? That's kind of the first question. The second question, if they are all of your specific goals, then are you able to clearly prioritize which ones should take precedent over the other? And are you able to prioritize them 1, 2, 3, here are the top 3?
So that's exactly where I am. I've gotten to a point where other people see my vision, and now they want me to help them bring their vision to life.
Got it. Okay. All right.
But what I have to balance is staying focused on my vision to complete my goals.
Yeah.
And how do I bring on clients who need my services and more? And then some of them need education, right? So we started creating a criteria for clients. If they aren't, on a certain level, then we just don't have time, or they aren't our target clients. So unfortunately, we aren't able to accommodate them. But the more important thing for me is the plan itself, because I planned on taking the summer to put everything on paper. And now I find myself with a showroom in the office. Now, instead of planning, I'm actually doing the things that I was going to put down on paper. So what I decided to do was to forego the summer and just use the office and the showroom as like a real-time experiment of the plan.
Yeah.
Follow what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So instead of me being in my basement, looking at it saying, well, when I get a store, I'm going to set it up like this. And when I have my office, I'm going to do this. I'm actually in position to do it and test run it and say, okay, well, I like it. Let me make some adjustments. So all of that becomes the different balls that I'm juggling daily.
Yeah.
When I get up now, do I go in the office and start designing? Or do I go in the office and start taking inventory? Or do I go in the office and start checking emails? You follow me?
Yeah.
So I know you have to schedule all of that, but here's where I yield to people like yourself and anybody else in the group who's further along in their structured entrepreneurship what actually seems to work. Because trial and error, for me, I lose time, which increases my anxiety. Because when I start feeling like I'm running out of time, I just try to go faster.
Yeah. No, well, I mean, and you got to play the long game too, it's like, and I would say the blessing of it is, I mean, no one knows how much time we have, in this life, but I always look at it from the standpoint, I say, God, give me 70 years. And if you can allow me to have a year after 70, then those are just blessed, precious years. So I like to play the long game, but at the same time, it is very important to also play especially for things that when you start engaging with, when people reach out to you for your services, and you have to kind of categorize that in whether it be business related or community related, and put them all in their own categories. So if you're going to get paid for that time, then that's business related, and you prioritize it relative to how you would in your business, from a compensation perspective and target market perspective. If it's community related, then you prioritize relative to your community work and how you engage and how much time you spend on the community work. But I will tell you, man, the fact that you are doing what you would normally have written down and say, I'm going to write this out and just, put this on paper, and you're just going to work and have a very live workshop. And the one thing you have to look at it is, if you're going right into the office and doing the stuff that you normally would, kind of jot down and get it on paper, then that means you have a live workshop, which means that you have to be okay with the fact that some things, it's just like, what's my man name? I can't think of it, but it's just like the trial and error process. And so that you're in that trial and error. So some things are going to work, some things aren't going to work. You keep the good, you leave the bad, and it's a live, fresh workshop. And that's the reason why I want to say that, is because I don't want you to get discouraged when when things don't go right, because you just have to tell your mind that this is a workshop, which means some stuff is going to work. We're just practicing. It's just a practice. And just, I always even talk about it from a financial perspective, so I have a financial planning practice. We're practicing stuff. You're going to bring me all the stuff that you got, and we're going to practice. There are some prerequisites that's kind of helping you with your approach, but we're going to see if this stuff works. Like maybe, that's someone say I have a law practice, they test this out and see if we can create some. So you have a workshop.
Right, you're working out all the kinks.
You're working out all the kinks. And if it works, then now you can check that box. Say, yeah, this works. And I'll know how to do that again. If it doesn't work, and say, I need to go back to work on that. But you don't let it affect your mindset. You don't let it affect your spirit. You just know you're practicing. You're getting better every day. And the more times you do it, the repetition, going into the office, creating stuff, taking on clients, trying stuff that you haven't tried before. But then once you do it, now it's something that you know how to do. So I think your approach is great, that you are ahead of the game, that you're going right at it. You're starting to build, but the part that you have to do is to categorize and prioritize. So is this a business client or is this community work? And if it's community work, a lot of times I try to use like the 80-20 rule. So if I got a lot of people, and this is kind of like more, and I know my time is limited, then how can we just, instead of trying to meet with everybody individually, but this isn't like business, you're not getting paid for that time, then you just create big medium. You say, hey, join me on a call at 7:00 in the morning, or join me on a call at 3, or, doing a blocked out time. And the people who want to be a part of that, they'll join. If they don't, and if they're trying to get that one-on-one time, which means that that's time that you're giving up, and that this is business related, there's a fee for that. Then that's the truth. So
what's happening, if I could throw a realistic scenario out there to you. So what's happening is, now that I'm doing my business 24 hours a day, I'm able to talk to people and go out and see their businesses versus just talking to them and saying, hey, let's meet on the weekend. Now I can meet them Monday through Friday, 10 o'clock in the morning, come out and see what they have. Specifically with these programs, right? Like you said, community-based relationships or organizations. But what they want is soon as they see what I do, they're like, oh, can you come here and set up your tent and make shirts for us on the spot? And I'm like, well, do you have a budget?
Exactly.
If they don't have a budget, that means you don't have the money for my time.
No.
And that's where business and personal starts to mix. So what I told the guys is this. I said, listen, I'll create a YouTube video of what I do.
There we go.
And you can watch the video.
Yep.
In that video, I'll offer packages. But when I come out, you got to pay for my time.
Yeah, amen.
Now, if I'm giving my time, like you said, I can create the split, right? 80-20, 90-10, 70-30, whatever I choose. The hard part for me is when my heart gets involved and I want to go do something for some kids. But business-wise, that might not be the best decision. So what I decided to do is to hire someone to come on and make those decisions and take myself out of that role.
You can do that too.
And then what I can do is I can train people. This is why I said I'm ahead of my schedule, because I plan on writing this stuff out, hiring, getting the funding.
Yeah, that's right.
Funding came.
That's right.
Boom. Now I'm in a position to hire. But you can't hire qualified people in 3 days.
Yeah.
Process.
But let me tell you something, though, and this is a conversation I had yesterday. The great part about doing the work first, instead of writing it down and planning to do the work, is now you got something to actually talk about. Like you got something to write about, right? Because you've done it. Now, when you start writing out your program and your business plan and your strategy, you're just writing on paper what you're already doing versus it's all theory kind of thing, you know? So I listen.
You know what I did?
Yeah.
I called Top Santa.
Yeah, there you go.
Because
see, there you go.
Me and Marsha, you know Marsha Hughes, right?
Yeah.
Well, you know her.
Yeah.
So me and Marsha talked about doing a STEAM program. I'm a STEAM kid. I came through STEAM at Morgan, right? So I reached out to Tata, like, hey, look, I got this opportunity. I don't have a written curriculum program. I got it all in my mind.
Yep.
And I needed to be written in the proper format with the proper language. So she gave me her consultation fee. I said, look, I need to hire you to write the program, not just consult. So I'll pay you to consult me. Let's put the plan together, right? Then we write the curriculum. But I still have to test the curriculum so we can work out the kinks. While she's doing that, I'm working on building relationships with collaborative healing, because collaborative healing is going to take us into Tanzania with the same program.
Yeah, man. And listen, let me just say this to you. And, you know, and I've known you now probably almost, 8 years or so. This is the most clear, intentional team I've ever met. What you're saying to me right now, sir, you are doing everything the way you're supposed to be doing it. And I would just say to you is get further excited about all the stuff that you have mapped out in your mind, because you're doing the work. And you're also using, you're connecting the two between logic and heart. Because the fact that you picked up the phone and called an expert in an area that was just going to bring you anxiety trying to figure it out means that you're really vibrating in the right space. You're thinking correctly. I would just tell you, brother, keep moving. I mean, just keep doing exactly what you're doing. And I would just organize your time better. And that's the thing you're going to learn over time, is how to best organize your time. But pay attention to the heart, you know. So if there's something that your heart is pulling toward, there's a reason why, you know. So pay attention to that. But as long as you're organizing your time and prioritizing things and delegating and all that, man, the sky's the limit, brother. The sky is the limit. That was good, man. I'm glad you shared that. That was good.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. We gotta set up a time of meeting.
Yeah, brother.
Sometime when we come down to the office.
Sounds good to me. Sounds good. Wow, look at this, man. Well, it's almost 9 o'clock. So We usually try not to take it fully to the 9 o'clock, but we're here now. But I will say, anybody have any questions or comments or things they'd like to share about their own personal objectives and journey? Let's take a second. We'll open the call now. And I see all the good stuff.
Good morning, Byron. This is Dana.
There she is. The good doctor's in the house.
Listening in. And first, let me just admire you, I think, for moving forward with your vision. And I think because your mind is already there, it's attracting everything you want very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been there. And I started my dental practice, as you all know, on a 90-day challenge.
Mm-hmm.
So I was learning as I was growing. But now I'm in a space where it's almost like I plateaued and then started seeking other ways to grow. So I'm a part of another mastermind group of all female dentists, all Black female dentists. And our mentor, her practice is bringing in several $1 million a year.
I love it.
So she took me personally under her wing. One of the other things that I did was I found an institution that trains you on every level of running a business, in particular a dental practice, but it can be the things I'm learning you can apply to any business. And so it's taking me back to the basics. So sometimes go ahead, start your business, start doing what you're doing. The things you need, you'll start attracting.
Mm-hmm.
And even when you mess up, yeah, it might cost you a little bit of time, but time goes so fast.
Yeah.
You won't even think about it. So you just keep pressing, you just keep doing what you have to do. Don't worry about, well, I'm not going to say don't worry about, but don't stress over the things you don't know, because you'll start seeking it out when you're tired of being in a plateau state. But I just wanted to, share what I've been doing. So I'm online. I'm doing online curriculum, spirit education. So I am learning everything that I needed to know as a business owner. And I'm like, man, this is so easy. I mean, it's breaking everything down, even down to how to conduct meetings, how to tweak your job descriptions and office manuals and stuff like that. So there are things out there that already has the layout, and you can just follow that. And as far as hiring somebody to make the decisions for you, more or less, you make the decisions and they just execute it. That's your. I know for me, billing specialist. So I have billing specialists. I don't even talk about money with people. Like I'll tell you what it costs, and then whatever questions you have after that, refer to somebody else.
Yeah.
So you have to make people rise to a different level, because people buy what they want to buy at the end of the day. And they don't have any problem spending their money in other communities without trying to, can you do this for free for me?
Yeah.
They don't even approach them like that.
Exactly.
They don't even approach them. Their question is, what would it take? Or what would it cost you? Or what would it take for you to come out and talk to my people?
Mm-hmm.
So put yourself on that level. Know your worth.
Yeah.
And stand by it. So this is what I charge. This is what it would take for me to come out, get a group of people, blah, 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 et cetera, et cetera. And if it's community service, I don't know, Byron, you can tell me if he can charge that as a donation.
Exactly.
As far as tax write-off. So this is what my time will cost.
Mm-hmm.
I'm using it as a tax write-off. So make it work for you. Whatever it is you're going to do, make it work for you. And that's it. So at the end of the day, I'm learning new stuff 7 years into my dental practice, like going back to the basics. But at the same time, I still have a steady stream of income coming in while I'm learning. So it's no loss.
Yeah, that's the beautiful part.
That's what I did.
That's the beautiful, and I heard you say dental practice so many times, you know, and but again, and also, you know, one of the things that I do for a lot of my clients is we'll set up nonprofit organizations for their for-profit business. So going back to that example, that when you meet somebody and you realize that this isn't really going to be a business client that is going to provide revenue and cash flow for your business, but this is more of an education moment where you're educating them on the process or the things that they need to do, you put that into the nonprofit space, you know, and so you can take part of your cash flow from the for-profit business to fund your nonprofit entity, and you have an already carved out program for that nonprofit, which you could plug them into just like that, you know, and also a lot of times people get scared and worried about nonprofits. Oh, I don't want to take so long to set up nonprofits. Listen, we have fiscal sponsors that we work with here in Baltimore and throughout the country that provide the back office compliance support on the nonprofit, where they serve as the nonprofit. All you have to do is just continue to do the programming work that you are committed to. And you don't have to worry about filing the 501c3 letter and getting the board of advisors and all that stuff. You know, that's what that fiscal agent does for the nonprofit programs. So there are ways to do these things and to still stay on message with the mission of your business, the mission of your organizational efforts. Yeah, man. So let's pull it together. But I tell you, I'm glad you shared it, our team, because Dana has gone through this over the past 7+ years. Actually, you know, Dr. Dana, I was driving the other day and drove past your old office, your old practice, when you were working for the other dentist, and it just my brain just popped up all of those, the space you were in as it relates to wanting to start your own practice at that time, and just the energy around that, and it was just a really cool moment to see that and think back to where things were. But that's where a lot of folks are at this stage. It's like, you know, I'm ready, and then all of a sudden you go. And when you go, and it sounds like our team, man, I tell you, I feel like when we're going to have this conversation 5 years from now, and it's just going to be it's just going to be a beautiful way to look back and say, remember when you were at that point? But all the things were lining up.
I'm going to tell you how just motivating you have been. The group period. I mean, you know how we met, right?
Yep.
So I'm talking to Chopra the other day. Now think about how I met her. Right? I met her at LV.
That's right.
Back east.
Sure.
Boom. Now we doing what we doing.
Yeah.
So I'm talking to her and I'm asking her what's going on with the call.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I don't get text messages, whatever. So I said, is the call still going? She said, yeah. I said, Chopra, I need the group. So she sends me the link. I get on the call. You're talking about what it is I'm dealing with. I meet Dana years ago. She's been talking to me like this every time we talk about anything, business. It's the same structured thought process, the same indicators, red flags, the green lights, yellow lights, what you got to pay attention to. DGE fires me, thrusts me into entrepreneurship mode. And then God said, you ready? Boom, here you go. Well, I just moved into a new house and everything. My whole life has changed.
Wow.
And you want to hear the kicker? I go to Los Angeles, meet with my tax guy. He's talking to me about opening a tax and financial business in Las Vegas that we can open in a space where we can have brand king controversy in Las Vegas as well. So I gotta get ready because this thing get ready to grow.
It's happening, brother. It's happening.
I need you, bro. I need you.
Hey, you're doing it.
Everybody in the group that consults, gives business advice, strategic planning, financial planning, I am all ears and I'm paying for consultation.
You lined up, brother. You are lined up. This is good. All right, we're at 9 o'clock. We are at 9 o'clock. I want to kind of highlight a couple books before we finish up here. So I already mentioned 7 Spiritual Laws of Success by Deepak Chopra. This is like, I mean, for me, this is like, I got the Bible and then I got 7 Spiritual Laws of Success as it relates to kind of my go-to books. For me personally, actually, so I mentioned, I do want to make this point. So I mentioned the whole part about Vernon Jordan and as somebody who I've identified as a personal advisor. Well, what's interesting when you start going down this, you start reading about people and you start digging into their story, then you have these derivatives of that person, which sends you down a different lane of reading to learn more about that person and how they connected to this and that. And then digging into Vernon Jordan, pulled up somebody who I hadn't connected with and kind of thought about in a long time, which is Ron Brown. And for those of you who remember Ron Brown, who was tragically killed in that plane crash back in 1996, I believe. But he was the Secretary of Commerce under Bill Clinton. And he was Jesse Jackson's campaign manager and was the chairman of the DNC and was just a rising star in the Black community in the 90s. And then had that tragic plane crash, and there's a whole lot of conspiracy theories around that. But to get the information, to dig into their story, their plight, their relationships, their mindset, all of that is just great. So I just picked up this book, just started it, Ron Brown, Uncommon Life, just to kind of put out another piece out there. Also, just picked up a new book, which I hadn't opened it yet. I just got it this week, but I mentioned even part of that derivative again with Bishop Patterson. Just picked up the book, Bishop C.H. Mason, who's the founder of the Church of God in Christ. And what's interesting about that is when you start thinking about, it's the largest African-American religious entity in the world. But there was a period of time when that explosion happened, when that explosion of new members happened. And so it's always interesting when you look at different organizations, groups, businesses, what was that growth period like? What happened to create it? We talk a lot about even in America, when the Industrial Revolution happened after the Civil War. Civil War had to happen to spark this whole new renaissance, which was the Industrial Revolution, and created the what we now see every day as America and the economic system. And so just want to highlight a couple books. And another book that I'm actually heavily in is a new book, The New Retirement Savings Bond by Ed Slott, who's just a guru on retirement strategies and tax strategies, combining the two, just trying to stay in the lab. So that's all I got. 9:05. This has been a full one, over 2 hours. But anybody have any questions or comments before we finish up for the day?
$9:05, 9:06. Brother, what I'm talking about. Right back in it.
This is definitely the longest call we've had in probably about 5 years. So I can
effort. It's like working out, man. You just keep going, and eventually you make it back to where you were. That's good to you, bro. Your voice, boy. Yeah, you too, man. I did. You talk so much, man, and I know our time is short, man. But yeah, you got to take time for yourself, man. Come to the office when you get a chance, man. So I'll do some. All right, I'm gonna come to this. All right, bro. I got it. Steve, Dana, everybody. It's a beautiful day. Thank y'all. Appreciate it. I'm so excited about this 9 o'clock. I told you. Right.
Oh.
Make sure you get a good recap for the next one, because there's a lot of things that got sparked. I got notes in my mind, though, to follow up for 5 years now. I'm excited about the summertime coming, man. People are out And you know, it looks like we're seeing a little crack in the fog.
Yeah.
You know, crack in the fog. So it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, we got. I mean, Purple Honey. I mean, it's so much we could have talked about, but we will definitely in the month of May. So, looking forward to that. All right, guys. Have a great weekend. Let's go into May with focus and energy. I do see a couple comments here online, so I'm going to follow up with you guys online here and respond to some of the questions there. But let's make it happen. Let's stay committed to our goals, and we'll see you next month. Have a good one. Good morning.
I have to be fast, but I wanted to say that.
Good morning.
Mm-hmm.
You eat your breakfast?
Mm-hmm. I made waffles with blueberries.
Oh, you got blueberries up there?
Mm-hmm. No, not waffles. I mean...
I just realized I hadn't ended this call yet.
Hi! Can I say hi to the people? Hi, people.
All righty. Say bye-bye.
Bye.